if God forbid you were to die today, tonight, God forbid, I want you
Yeah.
to live as long as possible. You have a
Absolutely.
wife and kids.
Yeah.
Um, what would be your final piece of advice to the world?
Just
Welcome back, Asad.
sorry.
Walaikum salam. Good to have you back. I was just noticing that in my podcast for season two, everyone's a repeat guest.
Okay.
I think,
That's a good thing. That means you had good guests the
yeah,
first season.
I know, and I think maybe it builds a connection with the audience because they don't know who we are. We're just random people.
I guess.
So maybe they see like the same person, build a connection.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's a good thing to have different guests, and it's a good thing to have the same guest as well.
yeah,
You can build on what you spoke about previously, but then at the same time having uh, a different guest, there's a new flavor, a new perspective, things like that. Just
yeah. Do you like you have a podcast as well?
yes.
Do you try to bring on people who have a following or like they're knowledgeable? Like what kind of guests do you go for?
So I try to go for the best stories.
Yeah,
I may not get a lot of views. I may not get a lot of people to even watch it, but I want to put the best story out there. For all of my content, it's very Islamic based. I have an Islamic
yeah,
channel, so it's not always the most attractive channel. My most popular video has like I think like 1,500, 2,000 hour of play, 2,000 hours of play time. And the funny thing about it is it's about one of the imams of the Kaaba and how he passed out while leading the Jummah prayer about a year ago. And that video just took off. And then like another most popular video on my channel is me doing an interview of an imam.
mm,
And they both don't really have any connection with the other. But when it comes to the podcast side of things, I go for the best story. I don't
yeah,
really look for who's famous, who's popular. There's different ways people do different podcasts. The problem I have with the Islamic podcast scene, for the most part, is everybody's just trying to bring the most famous person on to get the most views.
mm,
And you're hearing the same story 75 different times because all
yeah.
75 Muslim podcasts have the same guest on.
Same, yeah.
You know,
Muhammad Ajab, Ali Dal.
everybody will want
Yeah,
Sheikh Uthman Farouk. All love for
yeah,
him. He's been on my podcast. But when I had him on, he was known, but he wasn't as well known as he is now.
mm,
And I had been watching his content for some time before that. They'll have Sheikh Uthman Farouk now. Right now, everybody has Sami Hamdi. He's
mm.
like the Palestinian rights speaker. Then they'll have the brother who does the basketball camps. I've had him on my podcast, but I've
Yeah,
known him some before that.
I've seen him.
Brother Muhammad Abdul Alim,
Yeah,
Hoop Finesse. They'll have people who are like famous. And honestly speaking, when I put it on, I don't know if I even put his name as Hoop Finesse. I think I put it as Muhammad Abdul Alim
mm,
because that's what I call him. I don't call him Hoop or Finesse or anything. I call
yeah,
him Brother Muhammad. So, there's people will go for the famous people because
yeah,
they want the clicks and the views. And it's fine. That's what people are playing the game like everybody else is,
yeah.
so they can get a bigger following so other people can watch other content that they have. That's not me. That's why my podcast has never
You're
hit
not
it
doing it
big.
for the cloud or the money. Like,
No, because I don't. The first year I did it consistently. The second year, my wife was pregnant, so I did it when I could. The third year, my wife was sick and my daughter was sick. It was, we got COVID and stuff, so I did it when I could. I put out a podcast now like 3 or 4 times a year. That's it,
yeah,
right? And and it's not like they hit or anything like that. It's just that I do my, what's it called, video work when I have time. It's not my priority. My family right now is my priority. My work of Deen is my priority. My job, which is also part of my work of Deen, is my priority. But honestly, the podcast and the YouTube channel, I don't think I've put out like I don't think I've recorded real content in like a month and a half or something. Like
yeah,
most of my content is old. Right now, I have like a video person who's working for me who's redoing my old content and putting it out. I don't have time because I'm busy with the masjid, I'm busy with, charity work, I'm busy with
yeah,
everything else. It's just, there's no time. People who have podcast studios and they, are not even studios, like a room, and they just do it. Good for them, alhamdulillah. Allah put barakah so that they give
yeah.
da'wah through their work. But it's like, for me, it's not the main thing.
You kind of notice like they're just creating topics to create topics and like even in the Muslim podcast scene, it's like they're just repeating the same things. You're like,
I mean, nobody
yeah,
really wants to talk about real topics
mm,
because there's a lot of, virtual taboos. They're not real taboos. These are things the Prophet ﷺ spoke about with the Sahaba, and he spoke about in front of a Sahaba. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, one of the four great Imams of our Ummah, he spoke about things, and in public to teach his students.
Yeah.
And these people have these huge platforms and these huge podcasts and stuff like that, and they don't want to talk about these things. And I'm just saying, like, these are real problems. And I'm not saying we want to shame our Ummah and stuff like that,
Mm.
but a lot of times these are topics, if we talk about them, Christian people, Jewish people, Hindu people, Buddhist people, everybody from society can benefit from these topics.
Mm.
For example, if we talk about alcoholism,
Mm.
I was reading today, somebody had sent in one of our group chats, and it's like a brother's basically check, like everybody make sure everybody is okay, and it's for like older guys,
Mm.
right? And older guys like 30 plus. And one of the guys, he shared an article. It was about the alcoholism problem that sisters are facing
Mm.
in the ummah because of different depression and abuse and things like that. And he's like, this isn't talked about enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, I agree. And nobody's gonna go on a podcast and talk about that.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna talk about the fact that our guys have huge issues. They consume large amounts of alcohol. They go out and they party on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and they go sleep around. And nobody wants to talk about those things
Yeah.
because they're not. Those are real things which need to be addressed, not just spoken about and just on a podcast, but there needs to be a real
Solution.
solution or a real step being taken. A lot of people, they hate on the Tablighi Jamaat. You've
That?
heard of the Tablighi Jamaat? No.
No.
Tablighi Jamaat is basically this group. It's started off in India. It was the effort of a sheikh named Hazrat Maulana Ilyas, rahmatullah alayh, and he used to go to the villagers, the Mewatis. He was in Mewat and he used to go to the Mewatis. And what had happened at that time was a lot of people, they were Muslim, but they were also doing other things like they were doing bid'ahs or they were doing shirk associated.
Yeah.
They would go to like a dargah or they would go to like a grave or something like that. So he would go to these people and they were simple like villagers, and he would go to them and basically he would pay them. So they were day laborers, right? He would pay them and they would sit with them and he would teach them about deen. Basically the idea was to get these people back onto the deen. And once you get them onto the deen, they would go out to the other people and bring them back to the deen. Brotherhood, and for the sisterhood. And this is basically like the Jamaat, the Tablighi Jamaat they'll go to a masjid, they'll stay in the masjid, and they'll go to the locals and they'll invite them to come to the masjid and come listen to the talk. And then they'll talk. It's a very basic talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to go out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to encourage other people to do this and just bring them back to the masjid. And the main purpose is to make the masjid lively. That's really the main purpose.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they hate on them, but the Tablighi Jamaat, one of the things which they do is they'll go to people who are drunk, they'll go to people who are on drugs, and they'll encourage them to come to the masjid still.
Mm.
They'll even take these people on Jamaat, like people who are actively like, addicted to alcohol, and they'll take them on Jamaat and they'll be like, look, obviously you can't drink while you're on Jamaat, but even if they don't pray, it's okay. As long as they're in the environment of the masjid, eventually these people start praying.
Mm.
Even Sheikh Uthman Farooq, he was going through like, a really rough time personally, and the Tablighi Jamaat showed up at his house. No other Muslims wanted to come to his house. And he says this in his own interview.
Yeah.
No other Muslims, they showed up, they didn't care. They showed up at his house. So the job of the Ummah is to go to each and every person, regardless of their background, regardless of their struggles, and regardless of whether they're on drugs, alcohol, they're a fornicator, stuff
But
like
is
that.
it okay for them to come to the masjid drunk?
Coming to the masjid drunk, probably not.
Yeah.
But at least bring them within the vicinity of the masjid.
Mm.
Not, I'm not saying bring them drunk, right? But if they've drunk the night before, bring them the next day. By
Okay.
the
Yeah.
time they're sober or something. I'm not saying
Yeah.
grab somebody from the club and bring them to the masjid.
Yeah.
No.
But just the way you were saying it, I was like, that's what it sounded like.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Just sober them out and bring them to the masjid.
Okay.
Bring them in the environment of the masjid.
Yeah.
I mean, although if we had proper facilities, probably bringing a drunk person to the masjid wouldn't mean you bring them inside the masjid. You would bring them to some outside room or something like that and let them
Yeah.
sit in sort of like the greater facility,
Yeah.
and let them sober up. Because once you're at the masjid facility, you're sort of in a safe zone.
Yeah.
You're obviously not gonna get your hands on alcohol over here.
I had a friend who would smoke weed,
Mm-hmm.
and he would always be high.
Okay.
And so he's like, since he was always high, and he knew it was a sin, and he wanted to quit. He was missing his prayers, but he was
Okay.
like, I shouldn't be missing my prayers even if I'm high.
Okay.
You know, because when you smoke so much,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you stop. You know your tolerance, so
Yeah, yeah,
like don't feel anything.
yeah,
Like you need to smoke
yeah.
insane
Your
amount.
your threshold keeps
Yeah.
going up higher, higher.
So he started praying, even when he was intoxicated. He was still in his senses, but he was
Okay.
still high.
Okay.
And eventually, slowly and slowly, he started to become disgusted with the sin.
Okay.
So he quit. And
Alhamdulillah.
then,
Good for him.
so I think
Allah
prayer
accept.
is very powerful,
It is.
and it can take somebody out of sin.
Yeah.
It's something I'm trying to implement. Is just staying on the prayer, especially Fajr is so hard for me.
Everybody, man.
Yeah,
Everybody. It's not easy, especially in the sort of schedules that have been built for us.
yeah.
That it's not something that's supposed to be easy.
I want to go into a very deep topic,
Okay.
but basically, I want to. I mean, you don't call yourself a scholar, right?
I'm not a
You're
scholar.
just a student of knowledge, as
I guess
Sheikh Uthman.
as we all are. But what's it called?
um, but are you Hanafi?
I am a Hanafi.
Yeah, a lot of Pakistanis are, as well as I am. But to be honest, I don't know why I'm called. I should know, but I don't know why I am Hanafi. And
Okay.
like, how do you determine like the different sects and like what is the what is the difference between Shafi, Hanbali, Hanafi? Like,
Okay. So for most people, they won't know the difference. For most people, they won't even understand the major differences. For most people, what most scholars suggest is find a good local scholar who you can connect with, and who can advise you and who can keep you on the right path, and follow through with sort of the directions and the teaching of that individual. Because if you're a Hanafi and you live in a city where there's no Hanafi scholars, it would and you're not strong and you don't know the Masail, according to the Hanafi school, it'll be very hard to continue that way.
yeah,
So, if there's a good Shafi scholar and you consult with a Hanafi alim from maybe another city or something like that, and you say, what should I do? Should I stay Hanafi and you can advise me, or should I become Shafi? You'd want to consult with somebody good,
mm,
right, on this matter. But there's in Sunni Islam, there's four major schools of thought: uh, Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki, and Hanbali, right? And you find these Hanafis in different parts of the world, Maliki, Shafis, Hanbalis in different parts of the world. Hanafis you usually find in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. In Iran, the Sunnis are generally Hanafi. You will find in Syria, Turkey, places like this, you'll find a lot of
mm,
Hanafis, right? And Pakistan, India, Bangladesh just alone make up a lot of people. But you'll also find pockets of Shafis, you'll find pockets of people who call themselves Ahlul Hadith, who are not Shafi and they're not Hanafi. They just basically try to follow the Hadith and the Quran a little bit more strictly. Or try to find interpretations themselves
mm,
from the Quran and Hadith themselves. Malikis you'll find in like Northwest Africa, Morocco, Algeria, places like that. The Shafis generally are like in Egypt and Palestine and places like that. If I'm mistaken, somebody can correct me in the comment section. And Hanbalis, generally you have them in Saudi and places like that. And other places as well. But just I'm generalizing this as much as I can. But basically what happened is at the beginning, you have the Sahaba, right? You have the Prophet and Sahaba. They're understanding, they're interpreting the Deen. Now the Deen goes to different places. The religion, it reaches different places. Some hadiths reach different places at different times.
mm,
The Sahaba have an understanding, and even amongst the Sahaba, there were some differences of how they pray, and things like that. So if anybody follows any of the four madahib, that we call them, any four of the schools of thought, you will be following the correct Islam, and you will be on from within the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which is the greater Jama'ah, and you'll be on the correct path. Generally speaking, you try not to mix and match. And the reason behind that is when you do things by mixing and matching, you're doing them to please yourself,
mm,
not to please your Lord. So this is why when somebody is a Shafi, I will always say to them that continue to follow through on that school of thought. Don't jump and do certain things the Hanafi way and do certain things the Maliki way. Follow your scholar that you know who is Shafi and who can instruct you properly.
mm.
So they're four paths and they all lead to the same end. The goal is the same.
Yeah,
But you don't want to jump from one highway to the next highway. You want to stay on this same highway. because maybe this, somebody in the comment section is going to destroy me. So you've been to Dubai or you haven't been to
I
Dubai?
have, yeah,
You haven't been to Dubai.
Dubai, Abu Dhabi.
So
Yeah.
you know how people they go like driving in the sand?
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
sand
they go on the
dunes.
four
Yeah,
by fours and
yeah,
stuff like that, right? Let's say one road is like a sand road, another one is a mud road, another one is a snowy road, and another one is like high speed road. So you have your cars. You have your car for this, for this, for this,
yeah.
right? But if you jump from path to path, your car may not be made for that path,
Mm.
right? So you want to stay within the right lane.
So you're saying there's like differences?
There are differences.
Like, give me an example of something in.
For
Yeah.
example, a very basic difference. When you're traveling, your prayer.
Mm.
For the Hanafis, your prayer for 15 days, if you're traveling outside of 40 to 50 miles, you're considered a traveler, right? You're staying within that 15, less than 15 days. Let's say you and I, we both go to Pakistan for 10 days. We're considered travelers in
Mm.
Pakistan. Now, for these 10 days, we have the rukhsa or the convenience to lessen our prayer. Okay? So you and me, we're going to pray Fajr. Fajr is just two, right?
Yeah.
Dhuhr, you and me, we're going to pray Jama'ah, we're going to pray two rakats. Asr, two rakats. Maghrib, just three. Isha, just two for the fard and three for the witr. And that's it. But we can't combine our prayers.
Okay.
As Hanafis, we're
Yeah.
not supposed to combine our prayers. As Shafi, I believe, I may be mistaken, some Shafi scholars say 3 days. Beyond that 48, 50-mile radius, for 3 days you're a traveler. Okay? But you can combine prayers,
Mm.
right? Fajr is still two. Dhuhr is two, and Asr is two, but you can combine them. So
So
as soon as,
yeah.
for example, like a lot of Shafi scholars, they'll say like Dhuhr, as soon as it comes in, you can pray the two, and then you can pray Asr right after.
Mm.
And then because you're
Yeah.
traveling, you're done.
So basically, like difference of opinion based
Yeah.
on
Now,
day.
now, now you now somebody will be like, I'm a Hanafi.
Yeah.
I'm a Hanafi, but I also want to follow the Shafi thing.
Mm.
So I'm gonna combine my prayers for 15 days
Just for their own ease. Yeah.
for their own needs.
Yeah.
This is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to follow what the scholars say
Mm.
because they looked at the Quran, they looked at the Hadith, and they made an interpretation and they explained it to you on that basis. They didn't explain it to you for you to start making ease for yourself and mixing and matching rules.
Yeah. That's why you mentioned something in a podcast I did with my friend about taking things from people,
Yeah,
good and bad.
yeah.
It was an interesting take. With like in Islamic sense, because that's where we derive everything from Quran and Sunnah.
Quran and Sunnah, yeah.
So do we just follow one scholar, or can we like from like one school of thought, or can we like take things from I don't know.
You would want to ask a good scholar this question, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, the nasiha is not to jump around,
Okay.
because you will start getting confused,
Yeah.
and you don't want to create confusion based on man-made misunderstandings.
Mm.
So that's basically what it is. If you're creating your own understandings, and then you're getting confused, then you're going to start doubting scholars and stuff like that because you have created your own confusing scenario,
Yeah.
and nobody's going to be able to explain it to you because you've just concocted this whole thing in your mind.
Mm.
Who can explain that to you except for yourself?
Yeah. What is I've been seeing this term thrown around a lot, Wahhabi. What
So
is that?
Wahhabi is
Is that like I've heard it's a Quranist, like Quran literal, like
so there was a man by the name of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Some people call him Sheikh Abdul Wahhab. Sometime around the 1700s, I believe, in Saudi Arabia. What's modern day Saudi Arabia? There was no Saudi Arabia. It was called Jazirat al Arab.
Mm.
What's it called? So he was in that relative area, and people were doing over time. What happens a lot of times is people do start doing practices which are not Islamic, and they inculcate them into Islam. The whole thing with the culture in Islam, mixing words shouldn't.
yeah.
So similarly, that's they had a problem with that, and so you sort of made some strict rules to stamp it out. Right or wrong, I don't know. It's not for me to decide. I'm not a scholar, but whenever anybody gets pretty strict, people will generally start calling them Wahhabi.
Mm.
In Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, there's a school called Darul Uloom Deoband, and Deobandis are very considered very strict.
Mm.
Uh, People will call me a Deobandi because that's where my knowledge, where my teachers come from. So what's it called? So whenever you say something from a strict perspective, people will immediately be like, "Oh, you're a Wahhabi or you're a Deobandi or something like that."
Yeah.
A lot of times people don't like strictness.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, they're like, "Oh, Deen is easy." It's like, yeah, Deen is easy, but that doesn't mean Deen has been made for you to make it easier for yourself. So that's where people will throw around the term Wahhabi,
Yeah.
where today, what I tell you beforehand, I was like, I'm not wearing my thobe, I'm wearing a t-shirt. So your viewers and listeners don't think I'm always in a thobe. I'll have my kufi on,
Yeah.
but it's called, I'll try to match my kufi with my
Yeah.
shirt, but it's called, but if I'm always in a thobe, people be like, oh, he's so strict.
Mm.
Honestly, for me, wearing a thobe, if you talk with a lot of scholars and you have discussions with them, there's a few criteria for clothing, right? And one of those criteria is like, it should be looser, it should be longer, and there's a lot of practical reasonings behind that.
Yeah.
And there was somebody they asked a sheikh that if we're praying salah in a pant and a shirt, is our salah accepted? And the sheikh's laughing and he's like, so your salah might be accepted, but not the guy behind you. And the joke is a lot of times people wear shirts that are so short and pants that are so tight
Mm.
that when you go into
Down.
sujood
Yeah.
or ruku, you're showing more skin than you should be showing. So that's what
Yeah.
he's saying.
Sometimes I make sure like I just tuck my shirt
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing about it is if you're wearing a thobe or a kurta or a long shirt,
Yeah.
even wearing a long shirt that goes down to basically like your mid thighs or something like that,
Mm.
if you're going to sujood, you're never gonna have to worry about your pants hiking down or your shirt hiking up or anything. Like
Yeah.
you're always covered. So in a thobe, you're 1,000% covered. There's no way possible for you to expose yourself in any way possible.
Yeah.
So so people will, for somebody, if they're a little bit more strict, if they have a long beard, if they wear kufi all the time, if they're strict in matters like they only eat the biha, and so people will be like, oh, he's such a Wahhabi.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of times it's people's own weaknesses and they see somebody who's trying to be steadfast and strict,
Yeah.
that because of their weakness, they feel vulnerable and they say things like this.
I
And that's
do
what it comes down
see
to.
how I was thinking about this the other day that when someone is very strict, uh, or sorry, when a new revert comes into Islam,
Yeah.
or someone that's trying to get close to Islam, and they hear all these rules, like, and people are telling them, brother, your knees are like, this and that, and they're like, oh man, there's so many rules. They get turned off by Islam. But then at the same side, I don't know if you follow this streamer Sneeko. Shout out Sneeko.
Yeah, Cinco, yeah, yeah.
So he's being told all these rules by his audience, Haram police,
Yeah.
and people around him, Muslim brothers. And he comes from a haram life, jahiliyyah.
Yeah, yeah.
He could be like, oh, this is too much.
Yeah.
But he's actually embracing the rules, even though he's not perfect, he's not following it.
So
Yeah.
so the thing about it is with commenters. Commenters obviously need to chill out. That's one thing I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Everything in the comment section is 90% of it's just people taking out their anger, it seems like it,
Mm.
on somebody. A lot of times people do say the right things, but it's not always the right thing. So one thing is when somebody converts, there should be somebody good from within the community teaching them and explaining all the rules. A lot of times people come to Islam because of the rules and regulations, because of the strictness.
Yeah. The rules kind of free you from the outside
Yeah, it's
desires.
because the idea, yeah, you're the whole purpose of becoming Muslim is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, if you want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to free yourself from the rules of the dunya. You have to fall within the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the ways he showed us
Yeah.
by means of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, showing the knees or not, right? Now, at the same time, we have such a limited number of people who are putting in their time and efforts at the masajid. So if there is a person at the masjid who's very strict, and as soon as somebody becomes Muslim and he's giving them very strict instructions, are you available to help take over the full-time teaching?
Yeah.
Or are you too busy hanging out with your friends every Friday night, Saturday night? You have this guy who's at the masjid every single night of the week, and so he's taken upon himself to teach. We don't have committees at masajid, at most masajid. We don't have groups at most of the masajid to help out with these things. So whoever's there is going to teach them. So if you feel like that person is wrong and they're teaching them wrong, well, you step up. That's what it comes
Yeah.
down to. So when somebody converts, we do have to teach them the right things, though. Immediately. We can't be like, well, I'll teach them that eating pork is haram 5 months later.
Mm.
Like, we have this timeline where we tell them alcohol is haram 3 months later. No, you have to tell them immediately, like, hey, you're a
Yeah.
Muslim now. This is a sin. What
Yeah.
you were doing before maybe wasn't considered a sin, but now it's a sin.
Yeah.
Eating pork is a sin. Eating non-dhabiha meat, it's not a good thing to do. Things like this. It's a sin. Eating non-dhabiha meat is a sin. You tell them. People are like, oh, that's too strict. They just became Muslim.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the reason they became Muslim was to follow the rules.
Do you think because of this, like people being so afraid of the rules and or being overwhelmed by the rules, that a lot of imams or have gotten a bit liberal? Like like I don't want to say names, like, but there's big names out there like Umar Suleiman and
I don't think Umar Sulaiman's a
you don't
liberal.
think he's liberal?
No, I don't think so. I think
Um,
he's a good guy. I don't think it's a guy. I don't
you're
think he's a
probably
liberal.
friends with it.
No, no, I'm not
Okay.
friends with him. I know him, but he's not. He's
Okay.
not a liberal. He's a person. So the thing about it, you have to understand is one thing is being personally conservative,
Yeah.
setting up rules for yourself, and everybody should be personally conservative and have the strongest rules and the strictest rules for yourself.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to do that. Most people want to look for the shortcut or the easiest way out. And maybe it's to appease their friends, maybe it's to appease the people around them, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You try to find the rules which are the easiest for you. So for example, I'll give you an example. Um, this is, I'm not gonna get too deep into this, but we spoke about
Yeah.
this the other day, and the group was doing masa or rubbing over the socks. Now there's rules and regulations around this which I'm not gonna discuss. A proper scholar should discuss these things, not me. But the video I sent you of Sheikh Samir al-Nas, who was his son passed away. He's a famous munshid. He used to do nasheeds. His
Mm.
name was Mu'az al-Nas. And Sheikh Samir was explaining why a lot of people will do it even on socks which are not allowed to do masa on, is because they're afraid to put their foot in the sink in front of people.
Mm.
We're doing an act to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
Why should we be afraid of what people will think or perceive?
Right.
If you need to pray, if you pray in your cubicle or your office or outside of the office, or you have permission from your boss to pray inside of your office or to pray in the lunch area, you get the permission. You're not in anybody's way. Now, don't pray in the middle of the door. I saw a video of some guy. He apparently he had a mental condition. He started praying in the middle of the airplane aisle,
Mm.
and a lot of people got upset at him. Oh, what kind of Islam is this? Obviously, what he did was wrong. You shouldn't
Yeah.
have done that. Let's say there's this room. You pray in the corner. You're not bothering anybody. It's fine, but you shouldn't be ashamed to pray. Why are you ashamed to pray? This is the obligation upon you from the Rabbul Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, liberal, conservative, things like that, people have chosen to go a lot of times with easier rules, with ease and obligations, things like that. And there was something we were talking about the other day, and somebody was like, when you keep pairing ease with ease, eventually you get weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
And when you keep pairing strength with strength, you that strand keeps stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, we're at a point in time in the ummah where we're gonna see those real men rising up again, because we have strong families now, where sort of we've sort of, I don't want to say it in a negative way, where we've separated between the weakness and the strength, and so you're going to start seeing stronger families rising again now.
Mm.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but we should all try to be personally conservative as much as we can.
I was just turned off by the. I mean, I like his lectures, Omar Suleiman.
Yeah.
The Ramadan series he does, but I
Yeah.
was turned off by the when he was in with the LGTV people.
I
Um,
He explained that.
but that was years later. He apologized.
Look,
But I get it. You know,
you
it's
you
made a
have to
mistake.
understand it's not easy, because an individual like him is very busy,
Mm.
right? Very busy. There's a lot of problems. All obviously he's a very respectable, scholar in this community, and other scholars sit with him who are his elders, and he sits with them and he listens to them, and I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I don't know what happened and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But regardless of all of that, he did offer a clarification. Um, Even after some time, he clarified the stance, what happened. He explained everything, and we all make mistakes, right? And if somebody has come out and said, "Hey, look, I did make a mistake. I'm sorry about this. If I did something wrong and you found it was wrong, you shouldn't have followed me. But I'm clarifying this."
Yeah.
for people to continue to go back into it, oh, he did this. He was with, what is the famous one? He was with the, what's it called? What is it? The LGBTQ priestess and stuff. It's like, it's just, one thing is, obviously, if somebody does commit a sin, obviously if somebody's famous, commits a sin, or somebody does something wrong, people love to talk about it, right?
Mm.
If some famous Muslim rapper, for example, does something horrendous, people will give him a pass.
Yeah.
Oh, he's living a immoral lifestyle anyway. Like, no, it's like you're supposed to hold everybody to the same standard then.
Yeah.
But we turn a blind eye, and I don't think Imam Umar Sulaiman at any point in time tried to commit any sort of horrendous sin or anything like that. Just feel like, he was invited to something, he showed up for the right intentions, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and
Mm.
later on he's clarified it. But I think we should take the good from him, and if we find that something he's doing is not good personally, then we shouldn't take that from him. But okay, maybe this isn't right, but he's giving good reminders of hadith and stuff like that during the course of it. Listen to that. But if something else we don't find good about him, then don't listen to that. Or if you find that he's doing something really bad overall, which I don't think,
Yeah.
but if somebody does, then don't listen to him at all. This is the simplest thing to do.
But I'm just going off what you said,
Yeah,
that not to take good and bad from people. Uh, so if I'm following Imam Umar Suleiman,
yeah,
and like you said, like I see something that I like from him, like something
mm.
he's saying, uh, but then I see something that I don't like, I'm just picking. Is
Then
that
find another sheikh.
okay?
I'm not talking about
Yeah,
following him like that. I'm
yeah,
thinking if there's a hadith series which he's doing, which is good, you're just listening to the hadith.
yeah,
And you're listening to his reminders to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
yeah.
Now, what you're asking about is like, fiqh,
Mm,
like, how to pray, how to do, what's it called, qurbani, things like that.
yeah,
It's a little bit different.
yeah.
But that's a little bit different. But if it just reminders or just falail, virtues, that's different.
Okay, so
At the same time,
yeah,
you should follow somebody overall who you can follow all the way through.
yeah. Would it be like dangerous? Because I would watch a lot of lectures and debates.
Hmm.
Is it important not to take it blindly and make sure to like look it up yourself? Because
Yeah, I mean, I think we should be very careful with what we're watching and listening to online,
mm,
who we're watching and listening to online. We should. That's why it goes back to what I said at first. Find a good local scholar, and that should be your source of Islam. The YouTube should not be the source of your Islam.
yeah,
Getting
yeah,
virtues from YouTube, great. Reminders,
mm.
keeping yourself on the straight path. But your main source of knowledge and teaching should not be YouTube. It should
But
be a scholar.
Quran and Sunnah.
finding
Yeah,
a finding a scholar who will teach you the Quran and Sunnah,
mm,
not trying to interpret the Quran and Sunnah yourself.
yeah.
You may make a
Okay.
mess.
So one topic I wanted to discuss is music.
Okay.
It's a very talked about topic in the online Muslim world, just in the Muslim world in general.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with music in a very deep sense because I made it.
Yeah.
I was around it. I was in the music industry. I was in that period when I was taking Dean serious. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make my music clean.
Yeah.
And then doing more research, I was like, I'm just gonna step away from it and
Mm-hmm.
try not to listen to it and try not to make it, but
Yeah.
post it. I would still write and
Yeah.
sometimes rap the beats, freestyle, but
Yeah.
I made the decision I'm never gonna post music publicly for myself. Now I'm not a scholar. I always say this. I'm not a scholar. I don't
Mm-hmm.
say whether music is haram or halal, but with my experience with music, I know the effect it has on my heart and how it can play with my emotions. And lately, it's just been giving me anxiety whenever somebody plays music, and if I start playing it, and eventually I just end up anxious and have all these feelings. Um, and they say music, like certain music, takes you back to the time where you first listened to it, and so you get that nostalgia of good and bad times. Um, but what is your opinion on it? Because I know there is a lot of Muslims and scholars that will say, okay, it's permissible if the song is morally good, the musical instruments are fine.
I'll say
Um,
some, not a lot.
yeah,
Some
yeah,
percent.
some music.
No, no.
Uh,
You were saying a
yeah,
lot. I was like, I don't think a lot say it. Some will say it.
yeah, some. Yes, a
Yeah.
majority say it's haram, but
Yeah.
there is some that.
I mean, look, majority say it's haram. Most of the teachers and the scholars I follow, they say it's haram.
Mm,
It's haram. We know the societal effects on music. Historically speaking, what music has been used for. So
Yeah,
music,
go ahead.
what I was saying was, historically what it's been used for. Even now, it's used to awaken certain emotions, stuff like that. You'll have musicians or singers who will have a whole album and it's all just love songs,
Mm.
or whole albums who are just their whole album they're singing about breakups and things like that. People are like, oh, if it's good moral music, listen to it. Like, most people are listening to mainstream music. Who's looking for this good moral music where somebody is singing about, going hunting for a deer in the woods? I mean, like, what kind of equivalency are you making? What are you trying to say? Eventually, if somebody starts listening to music, they're gonna end up on the mainstream. That's usually what happens.
Mm.
They're gonna listen to these trash singers like Kanye or Drake or somebody.
Yeah.
Like, it's just what's gonna happen. That's very natural. So I mean, there's no way around it. That's what's gonna happen eventually. But
But what's the evidence for it to be haram? Because people bring up that hadith of my Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "My ummah will take these deeds as lawful, wearing of silk, alcohol, and music." But a lot of people say, I mean, I don't know if that's true, but a lot of people say it's a weak hadith. And then they bring up Surah Luqman, where the idle speech, but that could be interpreted as anything.
I'll
Yeah.
send you some articles.
Okay.
You can put them in the bottom of the video. But what's it called? As far as the religious proof and stuff like that, you would want a proper scholar to discuss those things.
Okay.
So I'll send you the articles and then you can share them at the bottom of the video, inshallah.
Okay. Inshallah. Look out for that.
Yeah,
Um, but that's your stance. It's haram.
that's haram.
Okay.
That's what the scholars I follow, what the teachers I had, they all
Yeah.
said this. So no,
Yeah. I mean, I, I take the same stance kind of, but I don't like tell people because I don't want to like.
I don't
Yeah.
say it publicly.
Yeah.
I won't get up and give Juma about why music is haram.
Yeah.
There's really not. There's other
You get
things to
like
talk
50
about.
people coming to you after.
No, this is
Yeah.
not about that. It's about there's
Mm.
so many other important topics.
Mm.
This is not a topic, for me to be up there discussing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if somebody considers it okay, they're gonna listen to it anyway, even if I say
Mm.
not to.
That is true. Um, Another topic, hard hitting topic, just coming at you. The free mixing in the Muslim community. We see it. I was in college. I've
Yeah,
seen the MSAs and
yeah.
the PSAs and the Arab Student Association. I mean, that's the PSAs and Arabs are not really a Muslim organization, even though they're all Muslim. But the MSAs, it's kind of sad to see um, how. Also, another question is like, do you think it's kind of a dumb question, but I'm still gonna ask it. Do you think uh, Muslim women should attend co-ed colleges?
Do you have any women's only and men's only college options available
That's why
locally?
I was thinking it's a dumb
I'm
question.
like,
Yeah,
I'm like, it's if we're not providing the alternatives,
yeah,
the best we can do is help our sisters and brothers,
yeah,
maintain their Islam.
yeah,
That's the best we can do. I mean, one of my things is we should really look into educating our daughters,
yeah,
very, very, very nicely, like having them have high level degrees so that they can help the ummah.
mm,
Like, if we want our daughters and our sisters to go to women only doctors and we don't give them any Muslim women only doctors, we're not providing them the solution. So
yeah,
we have to obviously provide the solution. But then obviously, if you want women's only colleges, then build them.
yeah,
You got to start doing that. And then we're not doing that. And then we're always complaining. So we have to start providing solutions as well. For brothers and sisters, not just in the. Women should only go to women's only colleges, but brothers can go to co-ed. No, brothers
mm.
should only be going to brothers only colleges too.
That
Then,
is facts.
we'll send them to the co-ed colleges, and then they end up making a mistake or marrying a non-Muslim, and we're upset. It's like we set them up for failure. So
Mm.
we gotta give them the solutions.
But what's your thoughts on this? The
Free
MSAs.
mixing.
Yeah,
I mean, all MSAs should try to be following the Sunnah, the Quran, and the Sunnah as much as they can. Um, Try to keep the brothers and the sisters at a halal distance as much as they can.
Yeah.
If there's necessary discussions, have those, but keep the sunnah guidelines in place. I'm not gonna criticize any MSA or and then this idea where PSA, I've spoke with them, we're not a religious organization. It's like we're not a religious entity. If you're a Pakistani Student Association, Pakistan was built on the premise of being a land for Muslims.
Mm.
So the very idea that a Pakistani association
Yeah.
or a Pakistani student is not Muslim
Yeah.
is either you're saying Pakistan is not a Muslim country, well then there's no need for Pakistan to.
I mean, Pakistan, like in itself, the cultures they do free mixing, like
They do,
yeah,
but what I'm saying is the idea was built upon having a homeland for the Muslims.
yeah,
So to say that hey, this is not a Muslim country, it's like come on, man.
yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just a strange thing to see.
It's you
Yeah,
know you can't criticize any MSAs, Arab Student Association, Pakistani Student Association per se, but
yeah.
we should as nasiha as wisdom.
There is definitely good people
Yeah,
that attend for the right
there's good that
intentions.
comes from it,
Yeah,
but we should give them the nasiha,
yeah,
the advice, the wisdom that hey, try to do as best as you can and try to stay away from haram as far as you can.
yeah. And I think a lot of people know that are a part of those
Yeah,
organizations. But it's just like you're at that age. Um,
I mean it doesn't matter if you're
yeah,
old or young. Attraction is attraction. So
right, right, right. Um, on topic of free mixing, like I'm under the impression that I'm not gonna say it's haram, but it's I would say it's haram to attend. I shouldn't say that, but I think it's very dangerous. I want to say that to attend.
yeah, let's not try to go into
Yeah,
halal haram.
yeah. I'm
Neither
not
of
a
us are
scholar.
scholars.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
the comments come at us. I think it's dangerous for men and women to attend, Muslim men and women to attend free mixing gyms.
Yeah, I would
Um,
think so.
you know, the guys and girls are half naked. There's just the hormones raging going around. I just think it's very dangerous. Like even if you're keeping your head down as a
Bro, you're
yeah,
you're you're walking into the fitna zone.
yeah,
Yeah, planet fitna. It's
yeah,
basically
yeah. Fitna connection.
fitna connection,
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
Crunch fitna.
yeah,
Whatever it is. You're
yeah,
walking in immediately. You're walking. It's like going to a beach.
yeah,
There's gonna be
yeah,
people who are not half naked, more than half naked. There's just you're
yeah,
walking into a zone where there's gonna be people who are not dressed up
yeah,
appropriately. And if you're like for example, if you go to a beach, if you go really early in the morning, there's nobody's there,
yeah,
right? So a lot of Muslim families try to go to a beach really early in the
yeah,
morning, or they'll get a like a beach cabana or something where it's a private beach where it's like
yeah,
sort of like shuttered off. So you got to do the best that you can. We have to start providing men's only and women's only gyms. Darussalam, the masjid in Chicago, they have a brother's time and then they have a sister's time to
mm,
use the gym.
yeah, yeah.
Start
People are
providing
gonna
the.
call me hypocrite. They see me at the gym.
I mean,
Uh,
I go to the gym as well. Not
yeah,
doesn't look like it right now, but I go to
yeah,
the gym as well. But I go
yeah,
late at night. There's
yeah.
usually no one
There's
there.
timings you can go. There's not many people.
Bro,
Yeah,
I go to the gym at like 10:30. There's like two guys there,
yeah,
the same two guys every day. It's usually one of them's like a
yeah,
Palestinian brother.
yeah. And I don't think people understand too is like if you're struggling with okay, I can't go to the gym at a certain time, you can work out in so many ways
Yeah,
outside at home. Like you
you
can
go
build
for a
up,
walk, man.
yeah, go the best way to burn calories.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, man. Last question I wanted to ask you. This is a deep question.
Okay.
But what was your biggest failure in your life? What did you learn from it? How did you overcome it? And did you grow from it? And if you don't want to say go in details, you could just talk about how you overcame it and what you learned, how you grew.
Failure.
Yeah,
You should have told me this question before, so I could have probably thought
yeah.
it through.
Take it you're
Um,
not live.
no, I think I took a long time achieving my college education, and one of the reasons was I was working full time with my father and running the business, and alhamdulillah, I was able to achieve running a very successful business, which made a lot of money over the course of many years.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah, I was able to learn a lot from it, but because it took me so long. Um, I would say that's a failure. It took me a long time, and then I changed majors and stuff like that. It made me realize that sometimes taking education slowly is a good thing. Um, you get to learn multiple things at the same time. Like I got to learn how to run a business properly. At the same time, I got to learn how to interact with people through the business. And maybe, yeah, it took me a long time to get my college education and stuff like that, but I got to acquire all these skills. So at the end, when I was done with my college education, it seems as though these days most people don't even use their degrees anymore. So
Sure.
I was skilled to be able to do a lot of different things. So now a lot of people approach me for those skills to help them out.
Mm.
And that's, and a lot of people, I help them out with their businesses, I help them out with their organizations and stuff, I help them out with their masajid. People call me from different states and stuff, we need help with our masjid, we
Inshallah.
need a hafiz for the Quran, stuff like that. I'm able to help them out because of those skills I acquired while I was going to college.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took me a really long time to get my college education, get my degree in finance, this and that. Started off in accounting, then accounting just was for me, it wasn't fun. Switched over to finance, and I finished quite quickly once I switched over to finance. But it took me all those years. But over those years, I was able to acquire other skills, and then those skills were able to help me connect with people. Those skills were able to help me make myself a better person. So that's, when it comes down to it, at that time, it might seem like you're going through a challenge or you're going through something negative, but there's always the silver lining. There's always the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything.
Yeah.
So we should always be looking for, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings upon us in each and every, even failure.
Yeah.
That, we might not have been able to get a Ferrari, but hence, had you had that Ferrari, you probably would have ended up in jail because you speed too much,
Mm.
right? Or maybe some days, we're trying to really hurry up and go somewhere, and what ends up happening is we end up leaving 15 minutes late and we end up avoiding some traffic jam or some accident which we might have ended up in if we had left at that time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always saves us from something.
Yeah.
Usually from ourselves.
Mm.
And this is why even in the bad we should look at the silver lining and go, oh, hey, look, this great thing happened. I didn't know this thing was gonna happen.
Yeah. There's that verse I saw yesterday. Posted on my story. The guy said a verse from the Quran that human beings were created in hardship.
Yeah.
So I try to think about that when I'm
Yeah.
going through things. But I'm sure there's people out there. Everyone's going through something.
Yeah.
If God forbid you were to die today, tonight, God forbid, I want you to live as long as possible. You have a wife and kids.
Yeah.
What would be your final piece of advice to the world?
Just look for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Actually, what happened last year in September, the 2nd of September, I was subjected to an armed robbery, and those guys, they actually killed somebody over here, right? Like 5 minutes away from here. They stole her car and they came to my store. They had guns and stuff. At that day, it was very real. I could have died. It became a very realistic thing in front of my eyes, and the guys were like, get on the ground. They were like, they had a gun, and they were like, get on the ground. I was like, no, I'm not getting on the ground. There's another brother, he's a Muslim brother, he's Irish brother. He had a store, and he had been subjected to an armed robbery as well many years ago, and they told him to get on the ground, and he get on the ground, and he gave me this advice many years, like almost a year and a half ago. He's like, if they ever do that, if it ever happens to you, tell you to get on the ground, never get on the ground.
Why is it?
Because once they have you on the ground, they put the gun to your head, that's it.
Mm.
You're under their total
So
control.
what did they do when you didn't?
I was like, you want whatever you want, take whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'm not getting on the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, take whatever you want. I'm not getting on the ground. I was very firm in it.
But even if they have you on the ground, they could. But even if you're standing up, they could still shoot.
They
you.
could still shoot you, but you could move. But once they have you on the ground, they have the gun against your head, you can't move.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I kept that advice in my head, and it was very real. So, if today is my last day, if today's your last day, or today's the last day of anybody who's watching or listening whenever this goes on, just try to set your best example so when you pass away, that people can learn from it and people can do better and make themselves a better person.
You think that's considered Sadiqa Jariya?
If even if you convey an ayah of the Quran,
Mm.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, somebody listens to this ayah, they learn from this one ayah and they improve their tajweed, I'm done, I'm good.
Yeah.
Inshallah, I'll be in a high level in Jannah,
Yeah.
because 10, 15 people listen to this podcast, 300 people listen, 5,000 people listen, and they learn this one ayah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So, even if it's an ayah, we can convey it. Try to convey that one ayah.
did that shake up your iman, the robbery? Like, or did
Check my
not not shake? I mean, did it bring you closer, like to Allah? Or,
I'd like to think so.
yeah,
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think it made me a better person.
mm,
It brought death very close.
close. Yeah,
And it's probably not the first brush with that I've had, but it did bring it quite close. There was another time I was leaving the masjid going home. I'm not gonna tell the whole story, but basically I was in a bad accident, but it was basically something people were doing where they were trying to set up people and they would get you in an accident. They would try to rob your car while you were knocked out or something,
yeah.
and that happened to me. And it was another brush with like very close to death.
Mm. Have you had people close to you pass away?
Yeah, my mother, my uncle,
Yeah,
my aunt,
yeah.
different people. My grandmother just passed
Mm.
away like 4 weeks ago. So,
Mm.
people have passed away.
May Allah grant her
Mm.
Jannatul Firdaus,
I
all of
mean,
them.
I mean,
Um, did how did that like? Because I haven't really. I mean, I had my grandfather.
yeah,
Was very close to him. Uh, Mainly, people. My best friend, one of my best friends
mm,
passed. I didn't necessarily grieve. It was more so, you know, I started thinking about death more from in like a selfish way,
yeah,
because I'm like, okay, this is gonna come for me. What's gonna happen next, and
yeah,
that was like also when I was coming towards Islam as like
yeah,
in my faith because I was born Muslim but not really didn't know why I believed in Islam.
yeah, yeah. It happens with a lot of
Um,
people. It's normal.
and then I was like, okay, I've done these things that my family tells me is haram,
Yeah,
and if it's bad or if I'm a bad person,
yeah,
and hell and heaven exist, where am I going?
yeah,
So that's when the ball started rolling. I started asking these questions. Um, I think that's the most important thing.
yeah,
I don't want to keep you too long, but I do have a friend that is Christian,
yeah,
really close friend of mine, and I'm trying to give dawah to him. Maybe I'm not doing it the best way because I'm not the best Muslim I should be right now, but because that's part of dawah, right? Character, and if you're on deen, then it's
Don't
easier.
be down on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I am beating myself up, but like his thing, I maybe because he's born Christian, and I just try to explain to him that the Trinity does not make sense. You cannot worship a man, um, and it doesn't get to him. But maybe that's just a timing thing. I don't know.
Inshallah, he'll
Uh,
he'll understand when
yeah,
inshallah the time will
inshallah.
come for him to understand. It's not if you've grown up on that concept, it's not easy to give it up. So
Yeah, yeah.
you have to give him some leeway, and you have to maybe logic doesn't always work with people.
Mm,
Maybe you have to explain the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to him. And
yeah.
Allah is so great and has so much grandeur. Why would he need a son? Whatever. There's different approaches and different ways
Yeah.
that people can understand it. And sometimes people just need time. Maybe it just needs time.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you, Asad.
As always, Jazakallah
Uh,
khair.
have
Yeah.
you on again, inshallah. But I'm gonna put your podcast in the description. Let
And
us
make sure
know.
you
Yeah.
make sure you subscribe to Harry Man Talks. Where's the
Subscribe.
Harry Man podcast? Which one is
Harry
it?
Man Talks.
Harry Man Talks. Okay.
Trying to get to at least 100 subscribers.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, I've been posting the shorts. They're doing okay.
Alhamdulillah.
Um, but yeah, man, subscribe and
Like, share, and subscribe.
like, share, subscribe, YouTuber stuff. But yeah, I appreciate you guys.